Filme Shilmy videos, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Aditya, first of all, thank you so much for joining me in today's chat. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great, man. Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure speaking on your podcast, and I'm glad we're doing this one too. It's
Yeah.
going good. It's going good. We're all under lockdown, but I'm getting a lot of writing done, so that's good. And I think most of us are sort of, settled into a groove now with our schedules and our routines and all of that. So yeah, man. All in all, it's looking good. How about you?
Yeah, not bad, man. I mean, it's just great sort of speaking with you and having that journalism cap on almost 24/7, 7 days a week. So it's quite fun to kind of be in this space right now. I must say, actually, it's rather creatively satisfying actually being in this space right now. I mean, is it the same for you? Do you feel creatively satisfied because you're able to explore more and you have more time on your hands?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so, yes, especially with the writing, right? If you ask any writer, they'll tell you that lockdown is more or less like regular life. And, with my acting stuff, of course, it's very different. But when I'm writing, it is kind of like that. You spend a lot of time sort of holed up in your room and, creating stories, creating worlds for a living.
Mm.
So absolutely, there is more time. There are fewer disturbances. So in that sense, one does try to make the most of this situation. But the anxiety of the situation we're all in, and what's happening around the world, that does also sort of play on your mind a bit. So it's a bit of both. But yes, definitely, one is at least able to move forward creatively in some manner because if I'm a writer or if you're a journalist, that sort of thing. I think our professions allow that for sure. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very special as well because obviously you made your debut recently with Bamfaad, which has got really good reviews across the slate, if I can say that. I don't even know if that's a proverb. But yes, it's got really good reviews. I mean, you've been your performance has been praised a lot as well. So how does it feel to kind of have made your debut in such a way where you're perhaps one of the first Bollywood debutantes to have actually made your entrance in Bollywood during the lockdown? So how does it feel to kind of, I guess, be in this space right now?
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Actually, ours was one of the first few things to release during the lockdown. I think it was a great decision in terms of the from the production side of things. They had the foresight to realize that theaters aren't going to open anytime soon, and so we should sort of make the most of this opportunity. Also, at this time, people are looking for stuff to watch, stuff to engage with. So this is it was a great opportunity, and it's feeling great. I mean, honestly, as far as the reviews go, as far as the response goes, I could not have asked for more, right? I mean, it's just my first film, but the way it's being received by people, the way our performances are being appreciated, really, it's very heartening and humbling.
And it was quite a rugged and very like cutting edge character, which is obviously very different from you as a person. So how difficult was it for you to actually get into the skin of that? I mean, how did you prepare for it?
So, there were three sort of things that I really had to work on, which in a way encompass most aspects of the character. Excuse me. There are the accent, right? The way, the manner of speech, the body language, and then you have his sort of, the inner world, the personality, right? So for me, what came easiest was the accent. I quite enjoy doing accents. So that sort of came to me pretty quickly. What I had to sort of work on was the body language. That took me some time. But the thing that I found most challenging and therefore most interesting was just how different the character was from who I am in terms of just his personality, right? His reaction to impulses, the way he functions, the way he thinks, or in many cases doesn't think before acting. is most opposite to how I work. So
Hmm.
there were some scenes where I initially could not comprehend sort of how one can play how one could play them, but I think the director was Ranjan Chandeli was incredibly helpful. He knew exactly what he had in mind. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he didn't want. So it all turned out for the best. But yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of sort of work involved, which was actually great fun.
So I
Most of
think.
us actors.
Hmm. So when we spoke for the podcast, actually, you did mention that originally the film was meant for a theatrical release, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So I mean, was it? How did you feel when obviously it was releasing on Z5? Because obviously, I'm sure you must have had some expectations that okay, my debut is gonna actually release in cinemas and people will get a widespread sort of will go to the cinema, like that whole experience would be there. So
Right.
how it must have been quite a bittersweet sort of experience for you to kind of understand and know that it's releasing on OTT.
To be honest, Anuj, I think it was just the first instance that we were told that it doesn't look like there's going to be a theatrical release because of the virus and all of that. Yes, there was a little bit of disappointment in the beginning, but then it was only for a few seconds because then you realize that you know the situation is in front of you, right? You know what is happening around the world, and you know that when the theaters open up, there will be a ton of big films, amongst which our smaller film might sort of get lost in that flood of releases that will happen.
Mm.
So it wasn't really ever, it didn't really hurt, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
it was great, and Z5 is as a platform it has great reach. I guess I think maybe more people might have seen our film this way than if it
Mm.
had released in theaters.
Mm.
If I'm
Yeah.
being honest, because
No,
just
definitely. I think what I meant by seeing a widespread, I think what I meant to say is that, there's that whole expectation, of actors of, them getting that big screen appearance and people rushing to the cinema and watching them. I think that's kind of what I wanted to clarify that actually to the viewers as well. Because obviously, as we know, OTT right now it's our equivalent of cinema right now. I mean, if it wasn't for OTT, perhaps Bamfaad wouldn't have happened.
yes, exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, is there anything that you've been watching in particular that has really, really sort of caught your attention and that you've really enjoyed?
There are a few things actually. I've actually been rewatching The Wire, which is an all-time favorite of mine.
Mm.
I just love that show. I could watch it and rewatch it constantly. I think Fauda is really good. I started watching this Hulu show a few days ago
Mm-hmm.
called Normal People.
Okay.
Uh, that's quite interesting. It's I think it's based on a novel by Sally Rooney. It's set in Ireland, in Sligo and Dublin. And I've seen the first few episodes. It's pretty interesting.
Mm.
I'm curious to see how it sort of turns out.
Mm. And I know, like, obviously, since you've made your debut and stuff, what has been your approach for the future? I mean, obviously, I know future, it just seems like a very distant word right now because obviously we're trapped in this sort of, what do we call it? A catastrophe of some sort. I guess that's probably the best way
Definitely.
to describe it. So, I mean, what are your plans? What are your goals, once lockdown ends as an actor?
So my plans as an actor are, I've got a couple of things lined up. Some things that I'd signed before the pandemic struck. We were supposed to. I mean, if it was all good, we'd probably be shooting right now.
Oh.
So yeah. So there are a couple of things that I'm really excited about. Whole new worlds to explore. Again, one of them is a period story. So that's going to be really interesting. Yeah, not too far back, but 30, 40 years, that sort of thing. But I mean, I'm really excited about, and there's just it just that's what's gonna happen. There are a few things that I'm writing, a couple of them for myself to act in. So if those pan out, that'll be lovely too.
Sure. And obviously right now, because alongside yourself, there's been a lot of other actors who have made their debuts recently. And often, and in fact, I wanted to sort of talk about this subject, and I know it might sound a little bit blasé, but I think it's just got to be addressed, and I just want to know your opinion on it. Obviously, whenever the son or daughter of another actor or a producer gets launched, there's always this talk of, nepotism and stuff like that. So, what is your stance on that? I mean, how have you prepared yourself for that debate should you ever be dragged into it?
So I mean, one is the almost certainly dragged into it the moment the film like this
Yeah,
releases.
sorry,
So
guilty as charged.
that's perfectly understandable. To be honest, my view is that nepotism exists in every industry, right? In every business all around the world. That said, my parents being in the arts, being in, having worked in theater and film for so many decades now, it does offer me great advantages, all of which I'm incredibly thankful for, whether it's access, whether it's guidance, whether it's, just their support for, for this big decision that I've made to sort of venture forth into the arts.
Mm.
So I will say that, and also, with nepotism, there are, of course, there is sort of greater curiosity. There's perhaps more scrutiny. People are less willing to sort of give you leeway. But I think the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. And I just consider myself very lucky to be in this position. And I also know that now I'm not going to be judged, or I'm not going to get an opportunity because I am X's son or Y's son. Now I'm going to get an opportunity if people liked my work in my first film, right? So it's, once you're done with your first, second film, you really have to stand up on your own 2 feet, regardless of what assistance you've been provided before that. So I'm very much prepared for that. And, like I said, I understand the advantages, and I understand that they outweigh the disadvantages and the added scrutiny that comes with such a situation.
Very well said. And I think, like you mentioned, there's been so many other, previous actors who have been sons or daughters of other actors, and they've tried to make a mark in the industry, but due to some reason, they weren't able, to succeed and sort of make the mark as much as their parents have. So I think it is just a matter of talent, isn't it, really? And how hard one works.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's in a field like ours, I think one of the most important things is also luck, right? There's talent, there's hard work, there's luck. And, as far as I'm concerned, matching up to my parents, specifically my father as an actor, is really out of the question. I'd have to, like I'd mentioned on your podcast the last time, I'd have to work, incredibly hard and do amazing kind of work that do have to do like some out of this world sort of work to even be spoken of in the same breath as him. So it's really not something I worry myself about, because there's no question of comparison as of now.
And I think that's very true, and I think never one should ever compare. Like, even when we did our podcast as well, like for me, like one of the key questions I asked is what was, like, how much of a reference point, because I guess an actor always needs to find inspiration from somewhere. So speaking of inspiration, and speaking of plans as well, like we were talking about just earlier, what sort of roles do you think you would be very excited about? I mean, is there something in specific you have in mind that you're looking out for in a script?
Nothing in particular that that I'm looking out for. I think it's just, characters that engage me, stories that I find interesting, that I find engaging, great scripts, the opportunity to work with wonderful people. I think that is something that I hope for. I would quite enjoy doing a biopic or two, later on in life, definitely. I think it's just the idea of being able to portray another human being, and the challenges that come with that, are something that I would definitely like to take on at some point. But yeah, I mean, nothing specifically. I think it's, just stories and characters that I find engaging.
And I know I'll ask you about anything that you've been watching on the OTT platform, which really sort of piqued your attention. But has there been a Bollywood performance, a Hindi film performance in particular that you've seen and that's really sort of shocked you, surprised you, and impressed you the most? What was that?
Well, there have been so many. I really enjoyed Vijay Varma's work in Gully Boy. I really enjoyed Siddhant Chaturvedi's work in Gully Boy, Ranveer Singh, Alia Bhatt. I think all the performances in that film were brilliant. I loved Manoj Bajpayee sir in Son Chidiya.
Mm.
Nawazuddin Siddiqui sir and Irfan sir are absolute legends as well. I loved them in the Lunchbox. You know, so these are some of the films that really sort of stood out for me in terms of performances.
Hmm. Hmm. And again, another area of your career that I wanted to tap on as well is the fact that you wrote Panipat, right? You did the writing for that film. So how does an actor manage to sort of balance both, like writing and acting? Because essentially, as a writer, you have to portray that story on screen. So how difficult is it to balance both?
Do you mean in terms of logistics, or do you mean in terms of creatively being able to take a hat on and put it on again?
Both. I think both aspects are equally challenging. So how does one sort of get that equilibrium right?
So the logistics I'm still figuring out, right? I think I've just begun. I've been writing full time for two. I've been writing since I was in New York,
Hmm.
but at least in Bombay, in Indian movies, I've been writing for almost 2 years now.
Hmm.
But the acting sort of journey has just begun recently, in
Hmm.
earnest. So that's something I'll have to figure out. But the way I see it is, if I am not shooting or I'm not preparing for a role, whether it's workshops or rehearsals or something of the sort, I am
Hmm.
writing, and writing is something I can do on my own time.
Right.
It's not something that I need to adhere to other people's schedules for. I can write whenever I want to, whenever I'm able to. So that's something I hope to be doing side by side. But
Hmm.
so that's the logistics part of it. Creatively, I think that's something I feel fortunate about. Is I'm able to sort of take the writer hat off and put on the actor hat, and vice versa. Depending on the role I'm supposed to play. Like for example, with Bamfaad, there were minor improvisations that I made as a character
Oh.
as no, but then like what I mean is like minor, like really minor, the kind that most actors make. What I didn't do was make any additions to the script or even make any suggestions in that direction, because I know my place as an actor, right?
Hmm.
And there are two very perfectly capable writers. One of them is the director, who are on set. They have a script they've been working on for a long time. They know what they're doing. They know their job. So then it's not my place to be, thinking as a writer.
Sure. Hmm.
Whereas, when it comes to writing, it's much more clear. You're just writing, and you're not expected to, or there is no danger of you going on screen and
Hmm.
doing anything.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah. So in that sense, I think I find it quite easy to
Enriching.
sort of
Hmm.
switch. Also, when you're writing, it helps your acting, and when you're acting, it helps your writing. When you're an actor who also writes, you understand or tend to understand more easily what the writer is trying to achieve. And when you're writing and you are also an actor, you know a line, when you write a dialogue, whether an actor will be able to say it or not. Whether there is any point to that dialogue, whether it's just empty fluff. So it's really, I think one thing helps the other for sure as well. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've got to talk about writing because I think we've spoken at length, I think even when we did our podcast as well, about your acting experience and what gets you into the skin of a character and et cetera, et cetera. But when you were writing a film like Panipat, and I must congratulate you, I think it was very well crafted. If I can also go on and sort of do the gustaki of saying that it's probably one of Ashutosh Gowarkar's best films in terms of actually a historical account. I think it was fantastic. So when you're writing a piece like Panipat, how challenging? Again, I'm using the word challenging because it's a very neutral word and it can be very interpreted in many ways. But how difficult was it, I guess, for you to sort of get that accuracy, historical accuracy, and yet sort of make it weave into a narrative as well? So how difficult was it for you to do that?
I'm not going to lie, this one was incredibly hard. Not just for the two reasons that you mentioned, but it's also about, when you're writing a historical film in India, it's
Yeah.
sometimes it can be really bothersome, because you have to deal with things that people around the world, storytellers around the world don't have to deal with, or at least for the most part. whether it's communities that are being mentioned in the story, or certain historical events, or so that sort of thing. There is a bit more sort of policing in that regard. So that makes it even more challenging. In addition to the fact that it's a really complicated story, you only have sort of 2 to 3 hours to tell that story, and it's supposed to be engaging, but it's still supposed to sort of tell the story that sort of occurred. So I would say it's very challenging, not just in terms of figuring out the story or just working out the story beats, but also because you have to be really sensitive to every sort of community, or every sort of
yeah, of course. No, I get what you mean. You have to make sure you write it in a very neutral way as possible. I guess that's the best way.
No, I guess, see, that's the thing, right? Because when you say you have to write it in as neutral a way as possible, that suggests that it's not dramatic, right? And so you see the difficulty, right?
Yeah.
You can't. How do you write something dramatic and please everyone who's involved in the story at the same time? And that's difficult, and that's why when you're in India, very often you find, instead of biopics, you have hagiographies, right? You have stories that sort of exalt the protagonist, that maybe that is a character that, or a person that existed in history. So that does happen very often, and I guess you just have to find a way to stick as close to the documented facts.
Indeed.
Right, and then when you're sort of dramatizing scenes, you have to be sensitive, but you still have to be sure to make it not neutral or dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a very fair point as possible. But for you, so I guess you must have had to really get into the depths of researching as well, especially the documented facts and the documented historical aspects of it all, right?
Absolutely. I mean, see, all of that is a given, right? I mean, the facts and all the research, and then sort of trying to make sure it fits a structure and all of those things, right? So it was quite challenging. It was great fun, and it was a really enlightening experience for me to work with a legend like Ashutosh sir, and I hope that many more opportunities such as that come about.
Definitely. Who knows? Maybe one day we might actually see you taking center stage in this film.
Wouldn't that be a dream?
Yeah, I mean, well, if it does happen, you guys watched it here first, so yeah. But I think also
I'm gonna buy you a pint if that happens, for sure.
Yes, no, definitely. You're coming to East London for a drink.
Done,
definitely. Well, that sounds great. But on a final note, Aditya, and I know obviously you're still almost like the new kid on the block as an actor, but you've obviously worked in the industry for quite some time. Now, I think one of the greatest fears after lockdown ends is people's confidence of coming back to the cinema and watching films like how we used to before COVID-19 outbreak happened. So what do you think, it's a bit of a heavy question to end on, but what do you think will give people that confidence to come back to the cinema once all this ends? I didn't mention it was heavy.
No, that's right. One hopes that it is the fact that the trailer of your film is so good that people are willing to risk their lives to go to the cinema. But no, to be very honest, it's going to be that once people are sure that they'll be safe when they go to the cinema, and that everything will be taken care of, and they won't be endangering their lives to go watch a movie, and that's when they'll go to the cinema, man. So it's really not something to be, at least it's not something I am preoccupied about as a storyteller. I understand that, there are distributors and exhibitors and theaters themselves that, are very sort of anxious, and rightly so, because, it is their livelihood. But as a storyteller, I just feel like, it's going to happen when it happens. And we're sort of blessed to be in an age of technology where you can still tell the same stories you would have told otherwise, because you have platforms like Z5, Netflix, Amazon, and so on. So I mean, the short answer to your question is people will return once they feel it's safe to do so, and none of us know when that will be, but we all of course that happens soon.
No, definitely. I think it will happen super soon. But as I always say, it's important for all the viewers watching to be safe, to stay alert, keep watching the news. Don't read the WhatsApps because trust me, they will only scare
Oh
you
man,
even more. Like honestly,
don't
fake
do
news ka
that.
zamana hai aajkal. So please do not give in to that. And I just wanted to say, Aditya, thank you so much for joining this conversation once again. It was wonderful to catch up with you, buddy. And I hope to sort of see more of you and see you back in action once all this ends on a film set.
Thank you so much, Anuj. It really, really was a pleasure. I quite enjoyed talking to you the last time and this time as well. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
it's
And
a
yeah, I
pleasure.
mean, I hope that there is sort of I can come up with more good stuff in the future that people can enjoy watching.
Definitely, I'm sure you will. But anyways, take care, buddy, and see you soon.
All right, yes. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.